Dragon's Dogma 2. More microtransactions than you can count. And the performance sometimes doesn't even honestly exist. But it's still an absolutely amazing game.
In case you didn't hear, although you probably did, Dragon's Dogma 2 launched to a mostly negative review on Steam due to a number of major issues. The performance on PC is extremely poor, and Capcom also decided to include de novo DRM, which is known for causing additional technical problems and lower performance metrics, on top of whatever other problems that the game already has.
It's almost like they intentionally try to do absolutely everything to piss everyone off, because how else are you supposed to honestly look at this?
Which in this case is quite a bit. The PC version of this game has super low frame rates, it is CPU locked, and overall the optimization is terrible. Most of it is tied to NPCs, so if you're in a large area with a lot of NPCs, you're most likely going to have a bad time, even if you have a monster rig and you're playing on 1080p. Most PC
Yeah, if you're in the city, people complain that you have an extremely low frame rate. It just dips like crazy. It might be the NPCs, maybe it's actually something else, we don't know. But at the end of the day, hey, just don't pull things into cities and you're probably gonna be fine. Because if you're just running 20 FPS from 30 or 40, noticeable, but it's not gonna end everything for you, okay? So it should be manageable, hopefully.
PC gamers are struggling, like I said, to run above 30 FPS in those large areas, and then you have the microtransactions on top of all of that, making the entire situation worse. But like I said, if you're one of those people with a monster rig, I do have a solution for you guys in a bit, so stick around for that. You do not want to miss it. Now, as I briefly mentioned, this leads us to our next topic, and that is the microtransaction situation with Dragon's Dogma 2. So to kind of briefly just tell you my take on microtransactions, I think if a game is free to play, then microtransactions are fine. If there's multiplayer with cosmetics, I don't mind microtransactions in that case. But whenever it comes to single player games that are meant to be single player experiences that cost a full price of $70, I am fully against microtransactions. However, I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit for the microtransaction situation, but only a little bit. Basically, every Capcom game over the last few years has come out with some kind of time-saving microtransaction, and like Dragon's Dogma 2, you don't have to use those. Now, for Dragon's Dogma,
I hate when people say, I have heard this excuse already multiple times about Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, it's Capcom. They constantly put in these types of microtransactions. They have been doing this for 10 years now. And what, am I supposed to forgive it? Am I supposed to like it? What if the word Capcom doesn't actually mean anything to me? I don't play Capcom games. I don't care that Capcom does this constantly. That's not an excuse. It's the same thing when people say, oh, Starfield's the least buggy Bethesda game, you should be happy. Why? I'm not going to judge a game by Capcom or Bethesda. I'm going to judge it by how good the game is. And if it has a lot of microtransactions in it, that's going to be a minus, no matter how well known the company making that game is for doing it. The same way that I didn't excuse Starfield bugs because, oh, it's a Bethesda game and it's always buggy. It's still buggy. I hate these absolutely completely useless excuses like, oh, it's Capcom, you should be okay with it. They added convenience. But the problem with adding convenience to these games in form of microtransactions is very simple. Well, you shouldn't actually add these microtransactions for convenience. You can just make it more convenient in game by default. How do I not know that you're not tearing out of the game convenience in order to sell this convenience? How am I sure that that's not happening in this situation? I'm not. So I'm going to instantaneously be very negative towards these kind of convenience microtransactions.
Itself, DD1 had microtransactions as well, so I'm not really surprised that they are featured in Dragon's Dogma 2, but still, it's a single player game. They should not be in the game. Now, the reason that Dragon's Dogma 2 microtransactions are so controversial is because this is an open world RPG that's entirely based around adventure and random encounters to level up your character. The fact you're able to pay to speed the process up or even pay to fast travel around the map and completely avoid random encounters is a really bad look on Capcom's part. And that's not even getting into all of the other microtransactions that were revealed on launch day as well. So for me, it's not really surprising that the game dropped.
Some form of fast travel to avoid traveling in general is fine, and the game does have a default system for that, and that is the gems that teleport you. But still, you know, some form of, you know, even if your game is about traveling, some form of fast travel is not bad necessarily. You know, for example, travel between the distinct regions that you can go to. That's pretty nice. That works. I like that. I have nothing against that.
To a mostly negative on Steam. I think the majority of the mostly negative reviews on Steam are due to their performance.
Oh yeah, shout out to Weekend because reasons.
Could be more than likely 50-50, but like most of the microtransactions, you're able to do that stuff in game already just by playing the game. So the people that are able to look past the microtransactions aren't even able to play the game due to the abysmal performance. So it's not really a surprise to me that the game is mostly negative on Steam right now. Either way, you have to admit that this was not a good first.
I wanted to continue being mostly negative on Steam because the microtransactions, I mean, we have a freedom of expression here. And we have the freedom to choose to completely just dislike the game just because it has microtransactions. Or any other reason, honestly. Whatever your reason for disliking the game, or honestly liking it, that's your reason, and it's a legit reason, no matter how you slice it. If you play the game and you didn't like it because of X, it is what it is. If you played it and liked it because of the dust physics only, and that's enough for a thumbs up, that's enough for a thumbs up. So hating loving the game but hating the microtransactions is completely legit in my opinion, and I think it's good that people are downvoting it because it's gonna cause problems for Capcom because they don't want this game obviously to not sell good, and anything downvoted on Steam, people are gonna be looking at it and saying, people are downloading this for some reason, and then they're not gonna buy it, which is gonna teach Capcom a valuable lesson. You can't do this. Over time, they will learn. They all learn at the end.
Impression, and the Steam user score is entirely understandable. And one thing that I do want to address is I was one of the lucky people that got to play Dragon's Dogma 2 early, and there was a lot of genuine concern on why I didn't bring up microtransactions in my comment section after the game went live. And what I'll say about that is I didn't know that there was going to be any, although I should have assumed, but in the build that I played, there's no signs of microtransactions on that build. Now, Capcom was most likely expecting this kind of backlash because just a few hours after the official launch, they released a statement promising bug fixes and stability updates. However, they didn't really apologize for the microtransactions, and if anything, they kind of just made the situation worse. But Capcom is well aware of most of the issues at hand, so hopefully they'll be able to patch things up quickly and win back the goodwill of gamers in a reasonable amount of time. Now let's go ahead and talk about the overall performance of Dragon's Dogma 2. As you know from my review video, or rather my first impressions, I was pretty let down on the PC version. I was hoping it was going to be a bit more optimized. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Now, after the launch, we learned that the FPS was tied to the NPCs, to which most of the community rallied behind the thought of quote-unquote terminating the useless NPCs. That way they could increase their FPS. But this right here is where we get the silver lining. One quick fix that can make the PC version a lot better for those of you with a 40 series NVIDIA GPU is the addition of DLSS frame generation. Now, if you've been playing on PC games for a while and you have a 40 series GPU, you know how much of a difference DLSS can make, and in a game like Dragon's Dogma 2, that kind of improved frame stability would go a long way in making the experience more playable for those who aren't willing to deal with low frame rates. Now, what's really funny about this whole situation with DLSS 3 with frame generation in Dragon's Dogma 2 is they actually have the required frame generation DLSS already on Dragon's Dogma, but the issue is there is no feature to enable frame generation on the game. Like, you go to the options and frame generation is just not there, even though the NVIDIA DLSS FG file is literally installed with Dragon's Dogma 2. All it would take for Capcom is to literally enable.
Capcom just is trying to piss everyone off and make them hate themselves. Well, most people already kind of hate Capcom for a multitude of different reasons. Didn't they have like a super big controversy not even a month ago or something?
That. Now, I believe there was actually official talk for Capcom to add DLSS and that frame generation support for Dragon's Dogma 2, but they were saying that that was not going to happen until the first title update, which at this point is who knows how long. But if you have an NVIDIA GeForce 4000 series GPU, mod developer Pure Dark just released a free DLSS enabler for Dragon's Dogma 2 already, so you should download that and start using it as soon as possible. Right now, if you go to large points of interest, you get about 30 frames per second without the frame generation, but the second you enable it, and I mean the second, the frames go up another 30 to 40 frames per second. So you go from like sub 20 to 60 plus, sometimes 70 in larger areas. It's a game changer. Strongly recommend it. I will leave a link in the description. Once again, it is free. So shout out to the modded community for making that happen. What I find wild though is they literally...
Dude, shout out for Dragon's Dogma for what happens when you have only males in your team. Oh, is this a preference or isn't? Oh, that's good stuff.
You have the DLSS frame generation files on the game Dragon's Dogma 2, like it's in the files. Why were they not enabled for launch? I have no idea. If Pure Dark can do it the day of release, like 30 minutes after release, why is it going to take Capcom until the next title update for a small patch?
Because I think the answer is it's Capcom, and there's a reason people kind of hate a lot of things associated with Capcom. And I mean, if maybe this is one of those reasons, because they're really, really bad at a lot of things.
Like this one. Now it's possible that the DLSS 3 files that Capcom put in Dragon's Dogma 2 were just for testing and the feature was never actually going to be included, but it's also possible that this is a work in progress and support for the official DLSS frame gen will be added at a later date. But regardless of what the official plan for fixing the frame rate is, you should definitely be running Dragon's Dogma 2 on PC with the Pure Dark DLSS enabler, because again, it makes a massive difference. Now, while the PC version of the game seems to at least have a silver lining when it comes to the frame rate, the same can't really be said of the console version, which has some of the most disappointing performance of any recent Capcom release. Ever since...
I mean, consoles just disappoint constantly. This game comes out, oh, it's 20 FPS, Cyberpunk 77. Remember, it was not even playable on consoles. I mean, dude, come on. Unplayable on PC is like everyone's mouth is just wide open. How is this possible? This is shocking. Unplayable on consoles? Oh no, the horror. The poor children. Think of the children. It's a joke. Oh my god, this game's a new game is unplayable on consoles? Who would have expected? But it's also going to be unplayable on the next generation of consoles probably, okay? Then just buy a PC and buy a controller and plug it into the PC if you want to experience it. It's just, God, I hate life. Console players are just, how do you not understand it, old man? Your time is over. The new generation is upon you and you're dead. It is what it is. Console players, please.
Capcom started developing on their in-house RE engine, they became one of the most consistent AAA developers in the industry when it came to good performance and solid frame rates. But Dragon's Dogma 2 was also built on the RE engine, but it's also a way bigger game than anything else ever built on it, and as such, the performance has seriously suffered. The console version runs with an unlocked frame rate, but it tends to hover around 30 FPS and frequently drop below 20. And since that's the console version, it's not like you could just download a mod to make that better. So I'm really hoping that Capcom has a plan to improve the performance on the console version.
Capcom has absolutely no plans for improving anything. I can already tell you that as a fact, okay? If there is some improvement by Capcom, it's gonna be random and it's not gonna be intended. That's how this game works, okay?
Version as well as the PC version, because if Dragon's Dogma 2 players have to wait until the PS5 Pro or even the PS6 so that they could play this game at a consistent frame rate, that is not going to be a good look for Capcom given the standards that they've set for their RE engine. Moving right along, let this be a public service announcement because there is a huge bug that needs to be fixed as soon as possible. If you're muscling through the issues with Dragon's Dogma 2 right now, you probably should be avoiding using the load from the last in option because there's currently a glitch that can result in you permanently losing your save progress by doing so. I have no idea how something like this
Oh no, how sad. People finally get to reset their characters and not pay $2 for a character change, a look change. Wow.
Made it into the launch version of the game, and I really feel sorry for those unfortunate players who had to find out the hard way, but thankfully we know about it now and Capcom is surely working on a fix for it. So honestly, I would err on the safe side and just use the load from the last save and not the last in option. So moving right along, I do want to point a few things out in defense of DD2. There is currently a misconception going around that Dragon's Dogma 2 locks all of its cosmetic changes to the microtransaction system, but I want to point out that that just is not the case at all. Most of the stuff that you're able to spend money on in Dragon's Dogma 2, you could just do it in the game for free. For instance, there was a lot of concern going around that if you wanted to edit your...
Well, wait, did people actually not understand this? Yeah, obviously. But again, the problem with these microtransactions is how much of accessibility in the default game have they got it just to add in this microtransaction? That's the question. Now, Capcom admittedly has had a very strange... Capcom has had a very strange history of pay-to-win microtransactions, by the way. Because there are situations in Capcom games, I think this is Monster Hunter or something like... I think it's Monster Hunter. There was some kind of currency that Capcom was selling in their pay-to-win microtransactions for Dragon Hunter? Monster Hunter, I mean. For Monster Hunter, I think it was Monster Hunter World, not sure. But in any case, they had a pay-to-win option to just buy this currency in their pay-to-win shop, but the reality was you could just go in and farm that currency, and you would have literally billions of that currency instantaneously if you just spend 1 second farming it. So the microtransaction didn't make sense. So Capcom has a very strange history with microtransactions. Some of them don't seem pay to win, and they seem useless, but some of them blatantly seem pay to win.
Character's appearance or your pawn's appearance, you have to spend money on microtransactions to do so. That's not the case. The way to do so is pretty easy. Once you enter the first main city, go to the marketplace, and you'll find
your pawn's bleeding out. Come on.
Building with a huge rift stone inside. There's an NPC in that building selling a book for 500 rift points, and that will allow you to edit your arisen or your pawn. So while we shouldn't tone down the overall heat that Capcom has been getting for the amount of microtransactions there are in this game, I at least want to make sure that you guys don't think that there isn't a way to go back to the character creator without paying real money for it. Like I said, that's the case for the fast travel system and almost every other microtransaction that there is. Well guys, that's gonna wrap it up with this video. What do you think?
Yeah, fast travel's expensive though. Anyway, that was pretty much it. And that was Invest Nemo. Pretty good stuff. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sensei. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye bye.